For over 1,000 years, this city had stood. Constantinople, the heart of empire, the last light of Rome. Once, its name commanded awe across the world. New Rome, queen of cities. But now in the spring of 1453, the Byzantine Empire was a shadow. Its borders shrunk to the city itself, surrounded, starving, yet defiant. Before its ancient walls gathered a new power, an army of 80,000 men, led by a ruler not yet 22 years old, Mehmed, son of Murad, the Sultan of the Ottomans. To Mehmed, this was not conquest, it was destiny. The prophet had foretold, one day Constantinople will be conquered. Blessed be the commander who conquers it, and blessed be his army. The crescent faced the cross. The world held its breath. On April 6th, 1453, the siege began. From the Ottoman camp, thunder rolled. The roar of cannons the size of dragons. They hurled stone and iron balls that shattered towers built 1,000 years before. Inside the walls, 7,000 defenders stood against 80,000 attackers. Greeks, Venetians, Genoese, a patchwork of desperate men bound by faith in history. Day after day, the city shook. The people prayed as the sky itself seemed to fall. But the walls of Theodosius had stopped countless enemies before. The Byzantines still believed. Perhaps they could stop one more. Each night the city burned, and yet it lived. The people gathered in the Hagia Sophia, the last refuge of their spirit. There, under the dome that had seen 1,000 prayers, they asked for a miracle. Emperor Constantine, last of the Roman emperors, moved among his soldiers, offering comfort, courage, and faith. He knew his city was dying, but his soul would not yield. Beyond the walls, Mehmed did not sleep. He rode among his men, whispering of destiny, of empire, of history's eyes upon them. To his soldiers, he was no boy. He was Alexander reborn, a conqueror chosen by God. The drums never stopped. The earth trembled beneath two civilizations locked in a death embrace. To the north lay the Golden Horn, Constantinople's lifeline, its harbor protected by a chain of iron stretching from shore to shore. No ship could pass. Mehmed's fleet lay helpless beyond the Bosporus. The sea, it seemed, belonged to the Romans. But Mehmed was not a man to accept walls or chains. He studied the hills of Galata, the narrow land that divided his navy from the harbor. And then he conceived an impossible plan. If the sea would not yield, he would bring the sea to him. In a single night, the world changed. More than 70 Ottoman ships, dragged across the hills on greased logs, entered the Golden Horn. Under the cover of darkness, behind the chain, behind the walls, behind all defenses. When morning came, the Byzantines watched in the stunned disbelief. The harbor they thought safe now teemed with enemy sails. It was a feat of will, of genius, and of faith in victory. Mehmed had done the impossible, dragging his ships inland and then putting them into the water on the other side of the chains. The siege was no longer a contest of stone, but of minds and war tactics. And the young Sultan had just outwitted the generals of the Byzantine Empire. The walls trembled. Weeks turned into months. The city was bleeding, yet still it stood. The cannons fired day and night. The walls shook, stones fell, rebuilt, and fell again. Constantinople was becoming a graveyard of heroes. Mehmed's patience was wearing thin. His army had lost thousands, his supplies dwindled. Some advised him to withdraw or face defeat amidst the towering walls of Constantinople. But Mehmed refused. Better to be buried beneath these walls, he said, than to turn my back on destiny. He ordered one final assault, an attack that would decide the fate of the Byzantine Empire. Before dawn on May 29, 1453, Constantinople heard the final call to arms. Inside Hagia Sophia, Emperor Constantine received communion. One last time, his words to his men were simple. The hour has come. The city entrusted to our care is now at hand. We shall not forsake it. Beyond the walls, Mehmed's army formed ranks as the muezzin's cry for the call to prayer echoed across the plain. The young Sultan, armored in gold and steel, raised his sword toward the darkened city. "Bismillah," he said, "in the name of God." The cannons roared, the ground shook, wave after wave surged against the walls. The first wave fell, the second broke, but the third, where I read the Janissaries, pressed on. They climbed the breaches, screaming the name of their sultan. Inside, Constantine fought as any soldier. Surrounded, outnumbered, he vanished among the gallant and wounded Byzantine soldiers. His body never found. The age of the Roman Caesars ended in the dust and smoke of that fateful day. Ottoman soldiers poured through the Theodosian walls of Constantinople. The Kirkaporta Gate fell. The Kirkaporta was a small secondary gate located near the northwestern section of the walls, close to the Blachernae Palace. The Kirkaporta, a small gate left unguarded, became the wound through which the empire bled. When the wall was breached, the Byzantine banner torn down, Mehmed's army enters the city at dawn. The streets are silent, the domes glowing red, dead and wounded soldiers lying on the streets. By sunrise, the defenders were gone. The double-headed eagle of Byzantine Empire had fallen. And as the sun rose on May 29, 1453, Mehmed rode through the gates of the Queen of Cities. Constantinople has fallen, unconquered for 1,000 years, now belonged to Mehmed the Conqueror and the Ottomans. From that day onwards, the world was never the same again. For the next 600 years, Mehmed II rides slowly through deserted streets. Smoke rises over Hagia Sophia. Inside, sunlight filters through the Great Dome as Mehmed dismounts, removes his helmet, and kneels in prayer. Mehmed entered Hagia Sophia not as a destroyer, but as a ruler of a new age. He looked up at the vast dome, at mosaics half hidden by dust and smoke, and whispered a prayer of gratitude. The conqueror ordered that the great church be preserved, transformed into a mosque, a house of worship for the generations to come. He declared Constantinople the new capital of his empire and called it Istanbul, the city of Islam, the bridge between East and West. And so in victory, the young sultan became more than a conqueror. He became a legend, the man who torn down the walls of Constantinople. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked the end of an age, the final breath of the Roman Empire. Its scholars fled west, carrying with them the treasures of Greek and Roman knowledge. Their wisdom ignited the Renaissance, a rebirth of art, science, and thought. For the Ottomans, it was the dawn of greatness. From Istanbul, their empire would stretch across continents, ruling for nearly the next 600 years. One empire fell, another rose, and the world was forever changed. Even now, the echoes of that day still whisper through the stones of Istanbul, reminding us that nothing is permanent in this world. Even great empires has an end. But man's greed for power continues to this day, in another form, in another time. The dream of greatness and power never dies.